Why Sri Lanka never became Bali. Sri Lanka and Bali are both tropical paradises, but the small Indonesian island vastly outscores Sri Lanka in tourism. Bali's international arrivals reached roughly 5.3 million in 2023, while Sri Lanka expected only about 1.5 million. Bali's entire 2023 tourism revenue was around $7.5 billion, which is roughly double Sri Lanka's entire travel economy size. These stark differences aren't because Sri Lanka lacks beauty. Its beaches, jungles, and ancient temples rivals Bali's. The gap comes down to policy, timing, and perception. Tourism flows toward the easiest, most comfortable destination, and Bali engineered that advantage. Tourism doesn't follow beauty, it follows convenience. People don't ask, what's the most interesting place? In quotes, when booking a vacation, they ask, what feels safe and easy? Bali answered that question first and most completely. By number 1, visa entry. Indonesia rolled out visa-free or visa on arrival access for dozens of countries. Many visitors can enter Bali without prior paperwork. In contrast, Sri Lanka requires an online ETA visa, which can be seen as cumbersome. Even experts note that streamlining visas would boost Sri Lanka's appeal. Number 2, flight connectivity. Bali is a well-connected hub in Asia Pacific. Low-cost airlines from Australia, India, China, and even direct flights from Europe. They serve Bali routinely. Indonesia's travel boom even spurred new routes like Australia to Denpasar. Sri Lanka's airport in Colombo has far fewer direct links. Most Western visitors must transit through the Middle East. Only recently have carriers begun adding routes, reflecting that by 2025, India was providing over 12% of Sri Lanka's inbound. But these are new gains. Number 3, regional integration. Bali is part of ASEAN. Many visitors treat Indonesia as a familiar nearby destination. Shared currency, even open skies policies, and aggressive marketing under wonderful Indonesia blurred borders. Sri Lanka sits in South Asia with its own currency and regulations. For a casual traveler, Sri Lanka can feel further away in quotes psychologically. These access differences compound quickly, and Bali simply pulled demand forward. Once transit and visas are easy, word of mouth and tour operators kick in. Sri Lanka had to overcome friction first, giving Bali a head start in the race. Political crisis and tourist confidence. Early tourism growth can be wrecked by crisis. Bali has had its share of trouble, but Sri Lanka's recent wars were more catastrophic for travel. Number 1, civil war. In 1983 to 2009. Sri Lanka's 26-year ethnic war kept it off most travelers' radar for decades. Even after peace in 2009, it took years for perceptions to change. And by 2010s, Sri Lanka was rediscovered, but Mali had a 50-year head start of continuous tourism development. Number 2, 2019 Easter attacks. Sri Lanka's worst tourism hit came in April 2019, when suicide bombers killed roughly 250 people. The immediate aftermath was brutal. Tourist arrivals fell almost by 70% in May 2019 as compared to May 2018, and it remained drastically lower for months. In 2018, Sri Lanka had around 2.5 million foreign tourists and was aiming for 3 million in 2019. Those goals were, however, trashed overnight. The government scrambled, cutting airport fees, fueling discounts, visa relaxations, but travelers also saw global headlines and stayed away. That kind of shock creates a lasting trust issue. Number 3, 2020 to 2022 shocks. COVID closed everything, and it impacted both Bali and Sri Lanka. However, Bali reopened strongly due to vaccine rollouts and pent-up domestic demand. But Sri Lanka reopened into a severe economic collapse. By 2022, protests and shortages made news headlines. Tourist arrivals dropped to about 720,000 for the year. Only after political change in around mid-2022 and recovery efforts did tourism begin to climb again. In contrast, Bali's crisis, which also included environmental issues like floods or volcano scares, have been managed with international support and haven't stopped visitors long term. An academic study underscores this vulnerability. Sri Lanka's tourism industry is highly sensitive to political instability, economic downturns, and environmental issues. In simple terms, whenever Sri Lanka goes through a turmoil, travelers take notice. Bali, despite local challenges, has projected an image of resilience. For example, after Bali's 2002 bombings, the island's authorities and communities combined to rebuild trust quickly. Sri Lanka has been rebuilding trust ever since 2019. Cultural blending and experience. Beyond hard numbers, the vibe of a destination matters. Bali's entire local economy is built around tourism, while Sri Lanka's is more diversified. Number 1, party versus respect. Bali is famous as a party island. Areas like Kuta, Seminyak, and Uluwatu are known for beach clubs, nightlife. Visitors often feel anything goes, that is public drinking, dancing, and even mild wardrobe shock are normalized. This open atmosphere appeals widely, especially to youth markets. But on the other hand, Sri Lanka's culture is more conservative. Alcohol laws are stricter when it comes to taxes and restricted hours. And many regions, especially in the south and east, expect modest dress. Sri Lanka sells spirituality and tradition. Bali sells escapism and festivity. As one analysis put it, Sri Lanka sells depth, Bali sells relief. And mass tourism overwhelmingly chooses relief. Number 2, marketing narratives. Bali's brand is decades in the making. Islands of the gods, iconic temples, surf breaks, and consistent message of paradise. Indonesia's national campaigns always feature Bali prominently. Sri Lanka has rebranded several times. It touts Sip and Sun Sri Lanka and eco-spiritual retreats, but has not sustained a single global hit slogan. Moreover, Bali leveraged early digital influencers and international hotels. Sri Lanka's marketing ramped up only post-war, so it often plays catch-up. For example, Bali invested in promoting culinary tourism globally. Food tours and cooking classes are everywhere, while Sri Lankan cuisine was an afterthought internationally until very recently. Number 3, cultural disruption. Bali has accepted that tourism changes local culture, even if it causes issues. Balinese culture is presented openly for tourists. Temple dances are shows, and community life often revolves around tourism spending. On the other hand, Sri Lanka is more protective of its culture. Tourists might feel like outsiders if not careful. While admirable, this cautious approach sometimes makes Sri Lanka feel less accessible to the average traveler. Infrastructure and investment. Tourism also depends on what's built on the ground. For instance, number 1, accommodations and amenities. Bali went all in decades ago. Luxury resorts, budget hostels, villas, surf camps, and so on. An entire spectrum. Even small villages have guest houses. By one count, Bali built infrastructure for 19 million annual visitors. Sri Lanka's expansion has been slower. There are high-end options in places like Gale or Bentota. But overall, room supply has struggled to keep up with even pre-crisis demand. That means higher prices and potentially sold-out dates during peak months. Number 2, seasonality and geography. Bali cleverly markets year-round. It has 2 tourist seasons: peak year, peak mid-year, and holiday season, and 2 rainy seasons, but they are short. Sri Lanka's geography creates alternating monsoons. When the west coast rains, the east coast shines, and vice versa. This yin-yang leads to twice-yearly peaks and deep troughs. Managing that is hard. Bali's small size means its entire tourist circuit is within hours, while in Sri Lanka, going from Colombo to a beach can be a full day's travel. These logistical hurdles dampen in-pass travel. Number 3, infrastructure projects. Responding to Bali's growth, Indonesia is building major projects: the Bali airport expansion, a light rail network, new highways, while in Sri Lanka, infrastructure was decades underfunded due to civil war and economic crisis. Road upgrades and a new highway exist around Colombo, but other improvements lag. Each time Sri Lanka attracts tourists, its roads and ports get strained, feeding back into a reputation for travel hustle. Tourism policies and safety. Community involvement. Number 1, community involvement. Bali has worked hard to involve locals, from training guides to encouraging homestays and local crafts. This spreads the benefits and builds advocacy for tourism. Sri Lanka has community tourism initiatives, but on a much smaller scale, and many local areas still benefit little from tourism. Number 2, safety and security. Bali invests feasibly in tourist safety. You'll see traffic officers guiding visitors in congested areas and a strong tourist police presence. Clear signage and tourist hotlines are common. Sri Lanka can feel less organized. According to experts, Bali's emphasis on security measures reassures visitors. Sri Lanka has room to improve here, especially since its recent crisis where clear communication is needed. Number 3, government targets. Both governments set big goals. Sri Lanka aimed for about 3 million arrivals by 2026. Bali, under Indonesia's plan, targets 9 million international tourists by 2029. Indonesia backs this with funding for promotions and events. Sri Lanka's budgets are tighter due to economic constraints. Let's look at numbers and trends. Putting it all together. Number 1, visitor composition. Bali's visitors are mainly short-haul Australians, followed by Asia. From Asia, that's China, India, and Japan. While Sri Lankas are a mix, headed by India, some Russians, Brits, Germans. India's share in Sri Lanka has been surging. By 2025, it supplied nearly 38% of arrivals, driven by new low-cost flights. Both places see domestic tourists. Number 2, revenue. In 2018, Sri Lanka earned around $4.4 billion from tourism, and post-crisis it has dipped, but was rebounding, about $3.17 billion in 2024 and $3.22 billion in 2025. Bali alone made $7.5 billion in 2023, about 40% of Indonesia's total tourism revenue. Put bluntly, Bali's visitors spend more money per trip, and the total money funneled through Bali is massive. Number 3, recovery path. After COVID, Bali's rebound was rapid. Tourist numbers fell to nearly zero in 2020, but by 2023 they were surpassing pre-pandemic levels. Sri Lanka's recovery was slower due to overlapping crises. However, 2025 saw 2.3 million arrivals in Sri Lanka. Industry watchers note that by mid-2020s, Sri Lanka was nearly back to its previous performance, which is thanks largely to Indian and Middle Eastern markets. Bali's recovery didn't rely on any one source. It had broad global interest. Conclusion and momentum matters. In the end, neither destination is better in absolute terms. Sri Lanka still offers vast coastlines and wildlife parks that Bali can't match. But in the tourism race, Bali sprinted early. It built the planes, cleared the runways, and kept flying. Sri Lanka is still on the runway, many of its engines warming up. Tourism doesn't reward potential beauty, in quotes. It rewards where people feel they can book, arrive, and enjoy easily. Bali became that archetype. Low entry barriers, non-stop flights, aggressive marketing, and a culture catering to tourists. Sri Lanka has all the ingredients but faced hurdles: war, bombings, and economic collapse, among others. Each hurdle required rebuilding confidence. Now that it is rebuilding, its neighbors are climbing, but Bali's lead is large. As one analyst notes, Sri Lanka's industry must balance growth with preservation, rather than blindly chasing Bali's model. That may be for the best globally. The story of these two islands shows that in tourism, the loudest, most accessible place wins, even if the smaller, deeper place might one day challenge it by finding its own. Until next time, bye.